The first time my stepfather's fist collided with my face, I was 16, standing in our cramped Denver kitchen, clutching a photo of me and my high school crush, Jamal. His voice, a venomous hiss, still echoes in my skull. "You think you can parade this filth in my house?" I didn't cry. Not then. But the blood trickling from my split lip tasted like shame and secrets I wasn't ready to face. My name is Ethan Carter, and I grew up in a house where love was a battleground. My mother, Clara, was a soft-spoken nurse who worked night shifts at St. Joseph's Hospital, leaving me alone with Greg, her husband of 5 years. Greg was a burly man in his early 40s, a mechanic with hands like sledgehammers and a temper that flared at the smallest spark. To him, my quiet demeanor, my love for poetry, and eventually my truth, being gay, were weaknesses to be beaten out of me. Denver in the early 2010s wasn't exactly a haven for kids like me, but I found solace in small acts of rebellion. Sneaking out to write in my journal at a local coffee shop, or stealing glances at boys in the school cafeteria, dreaming of a life where I could be myself. By 17, I'd learned to hide. I buried my feelings deep, dated a girl named Sarah to keep Greg off my back, and avoided any talk of who I really was. But secrets have a way of clawing their way out. One night, Greg found my journal, filled with poems about a boy I'd met at a summer art camp, Elliot, a painter with eyes like a stormy sea. The beating that followed left me with a cracked rib and a vow to leave as soon as I could. I applied to colleges far from Denver, landing a scholarship to San Francisco State University. The day I left, I didn't say goodbye to Greg. I just hugged my mom, who whispered, "Be safe, Ethan," her eyes wet with unspoken apologies. San Francisco was a revelation. The city buzzed with freedom. Rainbow flags on every corner, couples holding hands without fear, and a community that didn't demand I shrink myself. At 20, I was still cautious, carrying the weight of Greg's fists in my flinches and silences. But then I met Liam Nguyen at a campus poetry slam. He was 22, a Vietnamese-American graphic design major with a quick laugh and a habit of sketching strangers on napkins. His dark hair fell in a messy swoop, and his confidence was magnetic. That night, he read a poem about his immigrant parents, and I felt my heart crack open. After the event, he approached me, holding out a napkin with a sketch of my face. "You looked like you had a story to tell," he said, grinning. I blushed, unsure how to respond to someone who saw me so clearly. Our friendship bloomed fast. Liam introduced me to his world. Late-night ramen runs in the Mission District, protests for queer rights, and quiet moments sketching in Golden Gate Park. He was out and proud, raised by parents who embraced him fully. I envied that, but I also feared it. Greg's voice still haunted me, warning me that love like this was wrong, dangerous. One evening, as we sat on a pier watching the bay's waves glitter under the moonlight, Liam reached for my hand. "Ethan," he said softly, "you don't have to carry it all alone." I wanted to believe him, but the scars, both physical and not, kept me guarded. Over the next year, Liam chipped away at my walls. We shared our first kiss in a crowded Castro bar, the taste of cheap beer and courage lingering on my lips. But every step toward love felt like a step toward danger. I'd wake up from nightmares of Greg's rage, his slurs cutting deeper than his fists. I told Liam bits and pieces, enough for him to know my stepfather was a monster, but not enough to expose the full ugliness. I wasn't ready to admit how broken I felt. By 22, I was living with Liam in a tiny apartment in the Haight. Our life was a patchwork of small joys. Cooking stir-fry together, reading poetry aloud, planning a future. But the past wasn't done with me. One day, a letter arrived from my mom. Greg had been diagnosed with lung cancer, and she begged me to come home for a visit. "He's changed, Ethan," she wrote. "He wants to make things right." I didn't believe it, but Liam, ever the optimist, convinced me to go. "You deserve closure," he said, squeezing my hand. I wasn't sure I deserved anything, but I booked a flight to Denver. My stomach knotted with dread. Stepping off the plane in Denver felt like walking into a trap. The air was sharp, heavy with memories of a house where I'd learned to tiptoe around rage. Liam wanted to come, but I insisted on facing this alone. I didn't want him to see the version of me that Greg could still summon. Small, scared, silent. My mom met me at the airport, her face thinner than I remembered, her eyes carrying a quiet guilt. "He's not the same, Ethan," she said as we drove to their suburban home. I nodded, but my hands trembled. The house looked unchanged. Same peeling paint, same creaky porch. Inside, Greg sat in a recliner, an oxygen tank hissing beside him. He was gaunt, his once intimidating frame withered, but his eyes still held that familiar glint, sharp, judgmental. "Ethan," he rasped. "Good to see you." I forced a smile, my skin crawling. The visit was a tightrope walk. Greg spoke softly, apologizing for being hard on me as a kid, but his words felt hollow, rehearsed. My mom hovered, desperate for reconciliation, but I couldn't forget the bruises, the slurs, the nights I'd spent locked in my room, terrified. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, Greg asked about my life in San Francisco. I mentioned Liam, carefully, calling him my roommate. Greg's jaw tightened, and I braced for impact, but he only nodded. Later, my mom pulled me aside. "He's trying, Ethan. Give him a chance." I wanted to scream that some things can't be undone, but I just hugged her and said I'd try. Back in San Francisco, Liam sensed the weight I carried. "You don't have to forgive him," he said one night as we lay in bed, his fingers tracing circles on my back. "But you have to let yourself heal." I didn't know how. The nightmares were worse now, vivid flashes of Greg's fists and my mom's silence. Liam suggested therapy, and though I resisted at first, I started seeing a counselor named Dr. Patel, a kind woman who helped me name the trauma I'd buried. Slowly, I began to see myself not as a victim, but as a survivor. A year later, Liam proposed. It was a quiet moment, just us on a foggy beach in Half Moon Bay. He knelt in the sand, holding a simple silver ring, and said, "Ethan, I want to build a life with you, scars and all." Tears blurred my vision as I said yes, overwhelmed by the idea that someone could love me so completely. We planned a small wedding in San Francisco, inviting close friends and Liam's family. I didn't invite my mom or Greg. I told myself it was to protect my peace, but deep down I wasn't sure I could face them. The wedding was perfect, string lights twinkling in a community garden. Our vows exchanged under a canopy of roses. I wore a navy suit, Liam a cream one, and when we kissed, the crowd cheered so loudly it drowned out the world. For the first time, I felt free. But freedom is fragile. A week after the wedding, my mom called, sobbing. Greg had taken a turn for the worse, and she needed me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to visit again, this time with Liam. He insisted on coming, saying, "We're a team now." I was terrified, but his steady presence gave me courage. In Denver, Greg was bedridden, his breathing labored. My mom looked exhausted, caught between hope and grief. Liam charmed her with his warmth, helping with chores and sharing stories of our life together. But Greg's eyes followed us, cold and unreadable. One night, as Liam and I sat in the living room, Greg called me to his bedside. "I heard you got married," he said, his voice weak but sharp. "To a man." I froze, expecting an attack, but he continued. "I was wrong, Ethan. I was scared of what I didn't understand." His words stunned me, but they didn't erase the past. I nodded, unable to speak, and left the room. Greg's apology lingered like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. Part of me wanted to believe he'd changed, but the boy who'd cowered under his fists didn't trust it. Liam, ever the optimist, urged me to talk to him. "You don't have to forgive him," he said, squeezing my hand. "But saying your piece might set you free." I wasn't sure freedom was possible, but I agreed to try. The next day, I sat by Greg's bed, the hum of his oxygen tank filling the silence. He looked frail, but his presence still loomed large. "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why did you hate me so much?" He closed his eyes, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "I was raised to think it was wrong. I didn't know how to handle you being different." It wasn't an excuse, but it was the closest I'd get to understanding. I told him about the fear, the pain, the years I'd spent hating myself because of him. He listened, tears in his eyes, but I didn't feel lighter. I felt raw. Back in San Francisco, life with Liam was a bomb. We settled into our new roles as husbands, hosting dinner parties, adopting a scruffy dog named Milo, and dreaming of starting a family. But Greg's illness cast a shadow. My mom called weekly, updating me on his decline, each conversation laced with her hope that I'd forgive him before he was gone. I wasn't sure I could. Dr. Patel helped me unpack this, guiding me through exercises to process my anger. "Forgiveness isn't for him," she said. "It's for you." I started writing letters to Greg, letters I never sent, pouring out my pain, my rage, my wish for a different past. One night, Liam found me crying over one of those letters. He didn't say anything, just held me until the tears stopped. "You're enough, Ethan," he whispered. "You've always been enough." His words became my anchor, grounding me as I navigated the mess of my past. But the past wasn't done with me yet. My mom called with news. Greg had weeks left, and he wanted to see me one last time. Liam and I flew to Denver, our hands clasped tightly on the plane. This time, Greg's room felt different. Less like a battlefield, more like a quiet surrender. He was barely conscious, but when he saw me, he reached for my hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I was a coward." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, to make him feel the weight of what he'd done. But another part, the part that loved Liam, that had built a life despite the pain, wanted to let go. I squeezed his hand, not out of forgiveness, but because I was tired of carrying the hate. Greg died 2 days later. My mom wept, and I held her, feeling the weight of her grief and my own complicated relief. Liam was my rock, handling funeral arrangements and shielding me from curious neighbors. At the service, I didn't speak, but I left one of my unsent letters on Greg's casket, a small act of closure. Back home, I felt lighter but not free. The scars were still there, etched into my bones. Life moved forward. Liam got a promotion and we started talking about adoption. I kept seeing Dr. Patel, learning to love myself in ways I never had. But a year after Greg's death, a package arrived from my mom. A box of my old journals, ones I thought Greg had destroyed. Inside one, I found a letter from him, written in shaky handwriting. "Ethan," it read, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm proud of the man you've become." I sat on our couch, Liam beside me, and cried for the father he could have been. Greg's letter shattered something in me. Not the pain, but the walls I'd built to protect it. I read it over and over, each word a paradox. Pride from a man who'd once broken me. Regret from someone I'd never thought capable of it. Liam held me as I processed, his quiet strength a reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. Life in San Francisco was vibrant, but the past still tugged at me. Liam and I were deep in adoption paperwork, dreaming of a child to share our love with. We'd chosen a cozy 2-bedroom in the Mission District, painting the walls bright colors and imagining a nursery. But every step toward this future stirred up old fears. Fears that I'd carry Greg's shadow into fatherhood, that I'd fail to protect someone I loved. Dr. Patel helped me confront this, asking, "What kind of father do you want to be?" I wanted to be like Liam, kind, steady, unafraid to love loudly. One evening, at a queer community event in the Castro, I shared my story publicly for the first time. I stood on a small stage, my voice trembling as I spoke about Greg's abuse, my journey to self-acceptance, and Liam's role in helping me heal. The crowd listened, some nodding, others crying. Afterward, a young man approached me, maybe 18, his eyes wide with recognition. "My dad's like that," he said. "How did you survive?" I told him about therapy, about Liam, about choosing to believe I was worthy of love. It was the first time I felt my pain could help someone else. That moment shifted something. I started volunteering at a local LGBTQ youth center, mentoring kids who reminded me of my younger self. Scared, hiding, but desperate to be seen. Liam joined me, leading art workshops, his sketches bringing smiles to faces that rarely lit up. We became a team not just as husbands but as advocates. Our home became a safe haven for kids who needed a place to crash, a meal, or just someone to listen. It wasn't easy. Some nights, I'd lie awake, haunted by memories, but Liam's hand in mine made it bearable. My mom visited us that spring, her first time in San Francisco. She marveled at our life, at the love that filled our home. Over dinner, she apologized for not protecting me from Greg. "I was weak," she said, tears falling. "I didn't know how to stand up to him." I hugged her, not absolving her, but understanding her own scars. She met the kids we mentored, saw the family we were building, and for the first time I felt she truly saw me. As we moved toward adoption, Liam and I faced challenges. Bureaucracy, prejudice, doubt, but we faced them together. One night, as we sat on our balcony, the city lights sparkling below, Liam said, "We're going to be dads, Ethan, and we're going to be damn good ones." I believed him, not because the fear was gone, but because I trusted our love to carry us through. By the time we got the call that we'd been matched with a child, a 6-year-old girl named Maya, I was ready. Not perfect, not fearless, but ready. Maya's laugh, her curiosity, her trust in us, filled a space in my heart I hadn't known was empty. I thought of Greg, of his letter, and realized I'd outgrown his shadow. My truth, my love, my family, my strength was bigger than his hate ever could be. Maya's arrival changed everything. Her small hand in mine, her questions about the world, her trust in Liam and me. It was a responsibility that both terrified and grounded me. We transformed our spare room into a space for her, with murals Liam painted of stars and forests, and a bookshelf filled with stories I'd read to her each night. At 26, I was a father, and every day with Maya taught me what love could rebuild. But healing isn't linear. Some nights, I'd wake in a cold sweat, Greg's voice in my head, telling me I wasn't enough. Liam would pull me close, whispering, "You're here. You're ours." Therapy helped, but so did Maya's laughter, her drawings taped to our fridge, her fearless way of loving us both. She called us Papa Ethan and Papa Liam, and each time, my heart stitched itself back together a little more. Our work at the youth center grew. We started a scholarship fund for queer kids, named after Elliot, the boy from art camp who'd first shown me what it felt like to be seen. I spoke at more events, sharing my story to crowds that grew larger each time. The boy who'd hidden from Greg's fists was now a man helping others find their voice. Liam's art became part of this too. Murals across the city, vibrant celebrations of queer love and resilience. One, in the Castro, depicted 2 hands clasped, with the words "Love Wins" carved into a bench, a nod to our journey. My mom became a regular part of our lives, visiting often to spoil Maya with books and homemade cookies. She was different now, stronger, as if seeing my family had freed her too. We never spoke of Greg's letter again, but I kept it in a drawer, a reminder of how far I'd come. Forgiveness wasn't a moment, it was a process, one I was still navigating. But I didn't need to forgive Greg to love myself. One spring, we took Maya to the park where Liam and I had first held hands. She ran ahead, chasing butterflies, while Liam and I sat on that same bench, now weathered but still standing. "We did it," Liam said, his voice thick with emotion. "We built this life." I looked at him, at Maya's laughter echoing across the grass, and felt a truth settle in my bones. My past didn't define me. My love did. Years later, at a pride parade, I carried Maya on my shoulders as Liam waved a rainbow flag. The crowd roared, a sea of color and joy, and I realized I was no longer the boy who hid. I was Ethan Carter-Nguyen, husband, father, survivor, a man who'd turned pain into purpose. My truth, once buried under shame, was now a beacon for others. And as Liam's hand found mine, I knew that no matter what scars I carried, love would always be my loudest truth.